Hello and welcome back to Operations with Void. I'm your host, Forgotten Void, and I am coming to you from my Asia account here. As some of the viewers may know, I actually live in Japan, and so even though I mostly play on the NA, I do have an Asian account as well, and so we will be using my Asia account. And today we won't be talking more about how to play, we're just going to be going through Killer Whale. And since I believe pretty much all of my videos have covered most of the routes, I'll be talking more about the differences between the old operations and new. So I'll go ahead and start into battle. I'll be using it'll be a replay with the Ryujo since that is what I have been grinding as of late. Now, Killer Whale used to be the go-to map for carriers. It used to be the absolute best, the one you always want. There were used to be so many carriers in queue on Killer Whale because you had, well, you were at tier 6 and you're facing mostly tier 3, tier 4 enemies. And tier 3, tier 4 enemies have practically no EAs. So other than these forts, only the Bayern in the harbor actually had decent AA that you had to worry about. Everything else was minuscule, and you just make strikes upon strikes and not have to worry. Well, that all changed when the ops were upgraded. The ops, when balanced, all people could take in tier 8 ships now. So all of a sudden, ops were all balanced by and for tier 8 ships. So you have the inflated HP. Sure, it is as a tier 6 and HP is HP, but everything's up tiered too. So all of the ops are now balanced around tier 8s, but you can take tier 6s into them. And yes, if you bring all tier 6s, you are going to have low HP ships, but that doesn't change the models of the ships. So yes, they'll have low HP. They're still going to have more AA than they had when this was a tier 6 only op. Yes, you can nerf the AA down. That doesn't change the stats. So like Bayern here, it has a 5-kilometer AA range. The original battleship there, I forget what it was, but it just didn't have AA, period. Like, stuff like that is now all balanced around tier 8s, but these maps were all balanced around tier 6s, and they you have a Nuremberg in the harbor now. Nuremberg also has a 5.2 kilometer AA range. It was an early World War I armored cruiser was there. I forget which one. Tier 3 cruiser was there. It doesn't have an AA range that big. Yeah, you had a Kolberg or a Karlsruhe there, and like the Karlsruhe, even the Karlsruhe, okay, it has 4.6 kilometer. And the Kolbergs, when you face them, Kolbergs don't have AA, period. They have 0 AA. So even a nerfed Nuremberg has more AA than the Kolberg had in original Killer Whale. So if you bring in an all tier 6 group now, it's still harder than it was when it was all tier 6 before the nerf, before the ops rework. So ops all became more difficult, and well, for me, that's fine. Here I am just doing damage. I'm okay with the challenge. I am not the standard. I am absolutely not the standard that Ouija should be balancing for. The BG should, Wargaming should be balancing for the people who get well, 46%. Believe it or not, like 46% is the middle of the average. Wargaming should be balancing for the worst players, the people who don't know all the mechanics of these modes. Yeah, they should find ways so that those of us who know everything don't exploit and break the game. But they should also, like this, all this AA, you had a Königsallbert there. You had a Königsallbert and a Bayern. And yeah, the Bayern had AA and you had to worry about it. Königsallbert doesn't have AA. But now you have a Bayern and a Gneisenau. And Gneisenau actually has scary AA. And Bayern has actually pretty good AA. So, for the most part, yeah, okay, sorry, I'm complaining a lot, yeah. Ops are not geared around tier 6s anymore. And so doing well in a tier 6, you actually have to be really good. And so going into a random operation with a tier 6, it's not friendly. And so this actually scares away new players. Players who, like, oh, there's a new mode I can play with my brand new first tier 6 I ever got. Let me take my Nuremberg because I like German cruisers. Or I like German things and German cruisers are awesome, right? And they just get utterly deleted. To be fair, Nuremberg would actually get utterly deleted in tier 6. So that's not entirely fair. But Pensacola. Let's take Pensacola for it. Pensacola could bounce a lot with its nose. Like, Pensacola could actually bounce a lot with its nose. It had it has a 25mm bow. And you faced very few ships that had 380 that could overmatch the 25mm bow. So you could bow in with Pensacola. Now, that is absolutely not the case, and you face 380s everywhere. And so Pensacola has lost the tankiness that it had when all these ops were tier 6 only. So, yeah, it's of course Pensacola, you've turned broadside in the old, and now you're going to get deleted, but before you were actually pretty tanky. Gade is hard to do well with because of that. Because Gade requires okay, just Gade or the other 150mm German destroyer. They require more work to do well. Huang He used to be really good. And if you noticed in my port that I had a Huang He, it used to be really good for ops. Now it's very, very meh because it's a tier 6 and you're facing all these other ships. The entire operations now are just balanced around tier 8s. And the whole, oh, we'll buff and debuff their damage and we'll use their HP, but we'll keep the same ship models. That doesn't work. Mixing tiers does not even really work well. These scenarios, they were really well balanced to have a decent challenge, but also be not extremely difficult from where they were. Now, for tier 6s, they are too strong of a challenge, and you need people who know what they're doing to do well. Even for tier 8s. Like, I actually, before this battle, I had a battle with their 2 Tirpitz. Went in, died really quickly. Before the harbor, or the Killer Whale Harbor was even cleared out. How do you even do that in a Tirpitz? I actually do not know. But somehow, you had both Tirpitz die in the beginning before the first half of first third of Killer Whale was up. These ops are not easy anymore. Yeah, sure, I've posted a lot of videos of here's what you can do, here's how you can do, here's what you can do to do better. But if you have come in and you played the old ops and you're like, these are much harder than the old ops, you are absolutely right. They are much harder. And then, you know what? What I think Wargaming should really do is they should bring the old ops back and put 5 and 6, tier 5 and 6, into the queue with. Look, I'm in a carrier and I'm the first one up, and you have a bunch of people hiding in the back. That's kind of the state of ops now. People hide in the back. Same with Killer Whale. I mean, yeah, I shouldn't be this far up, but at the same time, people should be more further up than I am at this point in time. They're not. These people are cowardly because the difficulty has increased. They don't know to swap the front position well, because when you're in the front, you're the one taking the target and you're the one being the damage. And you can actually spread out by different people being closer to different ships instead of everybody all being close to one ship. Or one ship being closest to all the enemy ships and being focused on. You can spread out and different people are not the closest, and therefore you don't have one person being focused on. When you have everybody lumped together, then you have to push and pull to get other people to be the tanking or have someone else tanking. And this was a tactic in the old tier 6 one, but it's even more important now that the difficulty has increased. But yeah, so as I was saying, the tier 5 and tier 6s should be we should get the old ops as they were back before all the ships were replaced and you had the tier changes. They should go back to where they were. Tier 5s. They used to be tier 5, tier 6 ops. They were balanced as tier 5, tier 6 ops. The old Killer Whale, the old Aegis where you had a bunch of Kumas, they were balanced around tier 5s and tier 6s. As is, without having to change the HGP, without having to change damage mechanics. All this wonky stuff. They were balanced around tier 8s, and then you had extra buffed HP just to so you have inflated damage numbers. The whole thing was they were testing different ideas, and my understanding was it was either up-tiering ships or keeping the same ships as they were and making them hardier by buffing them. But what Wargaming did was both. And both was not the answer. Both was not. Sure, you can up-tier them or change ship tiers based on the composition, and that might work. Or you can put back the old ships and buff them based on, and that might work. Okay, maybe instead of up 2 tiers, go up 1 tier. But now you have everything buffed up 2 tiers, and they increase the HP of everything and have buff damage and buff it if you have an all tier 8 group. So you balance around tier 8s, and then you give the enemy bots a buff. It's really not how you adjust for up tiering. I feel like they did that as a purpose, really a fuck you, saying, you want to ops better? Okay, well, we'll make ops hard so you don't play ops anymore because we don't want people playing ops. Even though you, because they had Sub Octavian who was saying for a long time people don't play ops, and then they did a data check and then found out, oh wait, actually, the same number of people playing ops. So the people who play ops, you have the same number of people playing ranked. And ranked was a mode that they were heavily invested in. And so they couldn't dismiss anymore because now they see, now the numbers are out there. The spreadsheets now say ops are equal to ranked as the heavily played game mode. So that's why they did the rework. But it's another rebork. You had the CV rebork, where now you're playing CVs like this. And then you have the ops rebork, where they increase the difficulty to where it is actually the perfect challenge for me. If I'm running a tier 8, it is a really good challenge, and I enjoy it. And I actually would have been fine with the even higher tier ships that they put in, the FDG and Pommern on FDG and Pommern on Hermes, or the Ohio in Narai. I was happy to see those. Those were amazing for me. Like that said that, oh, maybe we could do higher tier, but they took those away. Because honestly, that was a good thing they took those away. Because that is a challenge for me. That if they want to do hard mode, they can absolutely do that. But for the average player, that is not good. And so they have actually had to scale it back down several times to try and fix things, to try and make these for the average player. But even then, it's still not in a good position for the average player. And they need to rework ops again. They need to look at ops again, need to rework ops again, because they are 100% really good for tier 8s, and a good place for tier 8s, maybe reduce the HP a little bit. But otherwise, a good place for tier 8s and a good place for tier 7s. Okay, I take that back. Not all in a good place for tier 7s. Narai could use some downgrading, like the Cleveland in the harbor should be downgraded. I mean, I'd prefer a Helena over a Cleveland in there, or Dallas. But yeah, they should. Then some other things, some other tactics for Narai were eliminated, like upgrading, overmatching the bows of destroyers with 150 millimeters cannons. That was a big tactic with Narai, but you can't do that anymore because at tier 6, the destroyers can't be overmatched with 100. The bows, they can't be overmatched with the 150 millimeter cannons, whereas at tier 5 they could. It really needs to be looked at again. But Wargaming likes to ignore problems, and this is one of the problems in their game that is now being ignored, because they're now working on another operation for Halloween. Even though they still haven't brought back the carrier for the Halloween ops, or they haven't brought back commanders. The original Halloween ops, they had commander skills, that you had a carrier, and then they were taken away because the carrier was taken away because the CV rebork. Ops were better when CVs were a thing. CVs in ops, and like Narai, the king, would attack the transport, so you needed an AA, so you needed strategy. Now, you only need to guard transports against the cruiser in Missouri and other gunships. You don't need AA and Narai anymore. Narai, you could go from the first wave could be mirrored. You have either left or right, and that was solidified as one way only. And there were so many changes to make it that it easier, and now it's harder than it originally was, because even though you don't have to worry about the planes, the upgrade to deal with tier 8s, it's a bit too much. So that is my piece. If you like this video, where I'm talking about the reminiscing the old days, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. If you didn't, thumbs down. If you have any comments, if there's something that I missed that you want to talk about or you want to point out, or if you have any comments of how ops could be made better, go ahead and feel free to put it in the comment section, or go to the World of Warships Discord and throw it in there, and it will be promptly ignored by the Ouija staff. Anyways, I hope to see you again next week when we continue with our standard program of here's how you should play ops, rather than me ranting about how ops could be better. With that, have a good one.